What if the most revolutionary electric car in the world wasn't made in Detroit, Tokyo, or Berlin but in a place the world forgot? What if a dusty corner of West Africa, long dismissed as poor and dependent, just birthed a machine that could shake the global auto industry? And what if the man behind it wasn't a billionaire tech mogul, but a young African captain in military uniform named Ibrahim Traore who said, "We will no longer wait for permission to build." This isn't fantasy. This isn't aid. This is Burkina Faso, a nation once known only for hardship, now producing its own electric vehicles locally designed, locally powered, and ready to serve African roads. No foreign factory. No handouts. Just belief, courage, and action. While the West debates climate goals and the East expands market share, one African country just changed the narrative, not with noise, but with proof. And it all started with a single idea that black nations can lead in innovation, not just survive it. So stay with us. Subscribe now, and be part of a story they never thought Africa would tell. And if you believe this moment matters, drop a comment below. Africa Rise. 5 years ago, if you had asked any expert whether Burkina Faso could ever build an electric car, the answer would have been polite laughter. Africa. Electric vehicles? Not likely. The assumption was simple: Africa was where old cars came to die, not where new ones came to life. Innovation, we were told, belonged to Silicon Valley, Stuttgart, or Shanghai, not Ouagadougou. But history does not bend to assumptions. It bends to those who dare. Captain Ibrahim Traore didn't come to lead with empty slogans. He came with a belief that dignity must be built. That nations are not respected for how quietly they comply, but for what they create. Under his watch, something remarkable happened. Not in Paris. Not in Brussels. But in a humble West African workshop, where young engineers, most of them never trained abroad, formed a team called ETA. Their dream? To build Africa's first electric car entirely from within. No imported blueprint. No foreign contractors. No billion-dollar partnerships. Just local minds, local hands, and a burning conviction that Africa can manufacture, not just consume. And so, they built it, the ETA 1. It's not a prototype to show off at expos. It's not a shell for photo ops. It's a working, road-ready, street-certified electric vehicle. Built in Burkina Faso. Charged in 30 minutes. Adapted for extreme heat. Designed not for European highways, but for African roads with rough terrain, dust storms, and long distances between towns. This car was made for us, by us. Let that sink in. Because for decades, Africa has been told to wait. Wait for investors. Wait for technology. Wait for permission. But no more. The ETA 1 is not just a machine, it is a message. And the message is loud: Africa is not waiting anymore. It has taken only one vehicle to shatter the myth that we need outsiders to innovate. And it was done not by the continent's wealthiest nations, not by Nigeria, South Africa, or Egypt, but by Burkina Faso, a landlocked country often overlooked, often underestimated. That alone is power. But what makes this story extraordinary is not just the technology, it's the politics behind it. Because it was not a multinational corporation that made this possible. It was a government led by a captain who believed in self-reliance, who challenged the narrative, and who backed engineers with action, not just speeches. Captain Ibrahim's latest news isn't about military reform or geopolitical alignment, it's about industrial leadership. In an age when African leaders are often celebrated for attracting Western capital, here is a man being celebrated for building African capital. No flashy PR. No loans from Paris. No strings attached. Of course, critics will ask, is it scalable? Is it sustainable? And that's a fair question. The answer is, it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to exist. Because now the blueprint is ours. Others will follow. Others are watching. Right now, As you hear this, engineers in Nairobi, Lagos, Accra, they're not asking if it can be done. They're asking how soon they can join. That is what makes this moment historic. Not just that Burkina Faso built a car, but that it reminded a continent of its muscle. So, if you've ever been told that black nations cannot lead in innovation, show them this car. If you've ever been taught that Africa should stick to farming and leave the factories to others, show them this battery, this engine, this chassis built on red soil and black genius. And if you feel pride, not just hope, but pride, leave a comment below. Tell us what you want Africa to build next. Say it loud. Say it clear. And if you're ready to see more stories like this, stories the world never expected from Africa, subscribe now. Because the road ahead is not just long. It's ours. No one expected it. Not the West. Not the East. Not even many within Africa. Because when people imagine electric cars, they picture German engineering, Japanese precision, or Silicon Valley flair, not a dusty courtyard in Ouagadougou, where young Burkinabe engineers sketch blueprints by candlelight. But this is the Africa they didn't expect. We've been told for decades that Africa must wait for others to lead. That development would come, but only through foreign direct investment, multinational guidance, and imported expertise. And for too long, too many believed that. We were conditioned to see the future through someone else's lens, to measure progress by how closely we resembled our former colonizers. But the Otawan flips that script. This isn't an African copy of a Western car. It's not a rebadged import. It's a machine born from the soil, designed for the heat, the dust, the terrain, and the daily realities of African life. The suspension is built for potholes that would break a German sedan. The battery cooling is adapted for 40-degree heat. The frame is durable, not delicate. And every inch of it says one thing: we know who we are building for. And that matters. Because Africa's biggest challenge has never been a lack of intelligence. It's been a lack of belief, externally imposed, internally absorbed. We were told to manage, not master. To consume, not create. So when Burkina Faso produced this vehicle, it didn't just roll off an assembly line, it broke a mental chain. There were no foreign contractors. No European management teams. No Chinese battery shipments. The parts were sourced from within the continent wherever possible. The software, hardware, and testing all done by African hands. It was a deliberate rejection of dependency. A blueprint for sovereignty. Captain Ibrahim Traore didn't just approve this project. He embodied it. He funded local talent. He cut red tape. He showed up. Not to shake hands with foreign donors, but to hold the tools, to walk the floor, to believe in black innovation without translation. Under his watch, Burkina Faso didn't beg for technology transfers. It built its own. Now the world is watching, but quietly. Headlines trickle in. Analysts raise eyebrows. But no one's cheering. Because this moment threatens more than just car sales. It threatens the myth that Africa must always follow, always ask, always need. Burkina Faso's latest news is not just about an electric car. It's about reclaiming authorship. For too long, African countries have starred in stories written by others: IMF reports, NGO campaigns, Western documentaries. But this is a story written by us, for us. The ripple effects are already visible. In Nairobi, a group of students are crowdfunding a solar-powered minibus. In Lagos, a startup is designing smart bikes for urban transport. In Johannesburg, plans are being drawn to source cobalt locally and refine it on African soil. The Otawan didn't just drive off the lot, it drove a wedge into the narrative that we can't. And if we can build this, what else can we build? This is no longer about one car, one country, or one leader. It's a signal that black youth do not need to emigrate to achieve. That development doesn't have to arrive in a shipping container. That the future is not imported, it's constructed. So, We ask you now, what do you want Africa to build next? Drop your answer in the comments. Speak it into existence. Because the world listens when we speak as builders. And if you believe this is the Africa worth investing in, not with pity, but with pride, then join the movement. Subscribe now. Because this isn't just progress. It's prophecy fulfilled. A car can be a tool. It can be a luxury. It can even be a status symbol. But in Burkina Faso today, a car has become something far greater. It's become a declaration. A rejection. A resurrection. This electric vehicle is not just metal and wires. It is a line drawn in red dust, that Africa is done waiting. For generations, we were told to focus on agriculture while the world built factories. We were told to send our raw materials abroad and buy them back at triple the price. We were told development had a look, a language, a passport, not ours. But this car is proof that we were lied to. The Ata one is not the end. It's the beginning. A symbol of economic independence. Of industrial birth. Of what can happen when black nations stop asking to be included and start building their own tables. In a world obsessed with control, dependency, and cheap labor, this car says, not here. Not anymore. Because this is not just about Burkina Faso. This is about every African country that has ever been told, you're not ready. It's about Ghana, Kenya, Senegal, Namibia. It's about every inventor whose ideas died in dusty notebooks because no one believed. Now, there's proof. And proof is dangerous to those who profit from doubt. Under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso didn't wait for approval. It acted. With confidence. With clarity. With the kind of courage that makes empire builders nervous. Because true independence isn't a flag. It's the ability to produce, to innovate, to choose your path without permission. This is the story that threatens the global order. Not because it's violent. But because it's visible. Because when Africa builds, it forces the world to reevaluate its position not as helper, but as equal. And when Africa becomes equal, the rules change. Burkina Faso latest news has nothing to do with coups or crises. It's about construction of industry, of confidence, of a new narrative. And in this narrative, Africa doesn't beg. It builds. Imagine what happens if this spreads. Imagine if Nigeria develops its own battery plants. If Malawi launches solar buses. If Congo no longer exports cobalt raw, but as part of finished goods. This is not far-fetched. The Ata one was considered impossible and now it's rolling through the streets of West Africa. The question is no longer whether Africa can. The question is who will join next. If you believe this is what Africa needed all along, say amen in the comments below. Because belief is the beginning. And stories like this feed belief. This isn't about luxury. The Ata one isn't made to sit in glass showrooms. It's made to survive potholes, to carry families, to serve communities. It's made for the streets, not the elite. And that's why it matters. It's not here to imitate Tesla. It's not here to impress the West. It's here to meet a need, our need. And when we begin building for ourselves, something beautiful happens. Pride returns. Vision returns. And the chain of dependency begins to crack. So ask yourself, what else have they said we couldn't do? And now ask, what if we stopped listening? Leave your answer in the comments. Because every comment here is a crack in the wall of doubt. And if you want more stories that show what Africa can do when no one's watching, subscribe. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it helps the truth rise. Success is not just an event. It's a signal. A spark. A ripple in still water. And if Burkina Faso's electric car is more than a one-time victory, if it becomes an industry, then this ripple could become a wave. One that reshapes not only Africa's economy, but its identity. Right now, Burkina Faso, like most African nations, spends millions importing used vehicles from Europe and Asia, cars already aged, already broken, already outdated. That's money leaving the continent. But if local production scales, that money stays. It builds factories, funds schools, trains workers, pays engineers. It stops being charity and starts being circulation. Job creation is just the beginning. We're talking about thousands of roles across every sector: manufacturing, logistics, energy, technology, training. When an industry rises, it pulls people with it. Young people who might otherwise flee abroad in search of hope now see it taking shape in their own backyard. And there's more. If Africa can build its own vehicles, it can dictate its own standards. No more adapting to roads designed for another continent. No more buying at inflated prices from foreign hands. Instead, Africa writes the spec sheet, sets the price, owns the patents. This isn't just economics. It's sovereignty. Burkina Faso's success also disrupts the psychology of dependency. Because for decades, African nations have been told they cannot lead, they can only follow. But what happens when they lead? When others follow their example? That's the future Captain Ibrahim Traore has begun to carve, not with words, but with wheels. Captain Ibrahim's latest news is not just about politics, it's about production. It's about reclaiming the right to define value on African terms. It's about reminding the world that leadership isn't just about votes and suits. Sometimes, it's about factories, blueprints, and bold decisions in dusty rooms. Scaling won't be easy. Infrastructure must be built. Power grids must be upgraded. Skills must be taught. But challenges don't intimidate builders, they motivate them. And with abundant sunlight, Africa holds the key to solving its biggest technical barrier: charging. Imagine a network of solar-powered charging stations across West Africa, designed by Africans, run by Africans, connected to a future powered by the sun. No fossil fuels. No dependency. Just a clean, local energy loop that empowers drivers and protects the environment. Now imagine this model spreading. Burkina Faso becomes a hub for West African innovation. Trade flows increase not with Europe, but within the continent. Ghana buys batteries from Ouagadougou. Mali sends lithium in exchange for charging tech. Togo contributes solar tech. Suddenly, the map changes. Borders don't divide, they connect. And culturally, something deeper stirs. For generations, Africans have been taught to doubt local quality, to trust foreign brands, to see made in Africa as second class. But this car chips away at that mindset. Slowly. Powerfully. It tells a new story. One where we are not the consumers of discarded dreams, but the architects of our own. So what happens next? That depends on us. Do we share these stories or let them fade? Do we invest in our builders or wait for outsiders to do it for us? Do we believe that Africa can lead not someday but now? If you believe the next chapter begins here, leave a comment: Africa can do it. Because your voice adds momentum. It turns one story into many. And if you want to keep seeing proof that Africa is rising not just in speeches, but in factories and tools and talent, subscribe. Because they've hidden our victories long enough. Now it's time to show the world what we've always known: we are ready. In the heart of West Africa, a quiet revolution has begun. Not with gunfire or headlines, but with circuits and courage. Burkina Faso did not just build a car, it built a mirror. A mirror in which all of Africa can see what was always there: genius, grit, and the power to lead. This electric vehicle is not just innovation. It is prophecy. It is the echo of every ancestor who once dreamed that one day, their descendants would build not in chains, not in fear, but in full command of their own future. This is what that dream looks like on wheels. It's easy to dismiss this as a fluke, as a lucky moment. But those who know history, Black history, know better. Every great shift begins with disbelief. Every chapter worth writing starts with someone saying, they won't last. And yet, we do. We build. We rise. Captain Ibrahim latest news is not about defiance. It's about delivery. In a time when the world is distracted by conflict and chaos, here stands a leader focused on creation. Focused on leaving behind more than speeches. Focused on proving that a different Africa is not only possible, it's already here. Burkina Faso latest news is no longer just a whisper. It is a signal. To Mali. To Nigeria. To Kenya. To the entire diaspora. That sovereignty isn't something to ask for. It's something to engineer, to charge, to roll out onto the street. We may not see the full harvest. But this car, this story, is the seed. So ask yourself, if this is what we can build with belief alone, what would happen if we believed together? Leave your thoughts below. What else must we reclaim? What do you want to see rise next? And if this story moved something in your chest, don't scroll past. Like, share, speak, subscribe, because they hid our history long enough. Let's speak our future out loud. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next story, the kind they still don't want you to hear. Comment, it's time for Africa. Keywords, Captain Ibrahim latest news, X2, Burkina Faso latest news, X1.